She said I'd died in Afghanistan, while cashing out my farm behind my back. I stood in my father's kitchen gripping a court summons. Vanessa, my wife, had emptied my accounts, sued me for $100,000, forged my signature, and sold my family's land, all while I lay in a German hospital unable to speak. But that wasn't the worst part. She went on TV, crying with a folded flag in her lap, telling Veterans Day crowds she was my grieving widow. I fought 3 tours to protect my country, didn't think I'd come home to fight for my name. But I wasn't just some broken soldier, and she had no idea who was about to fight back. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Richard Callahan, and I'm 34 years old. After 3 tours in Afghanistan and months of rehab for my rebuilt knee, I'm finally heading home to my family's farm in Missouri. My wife Vanessa, who I married right before deployment, kept me going with her letters full of plans for our future. Dad left me the farm before he passed, 200 acres of good soil that's been in our family for generations. The power of attorney papers I signed made sense at the time. Vanessa needed authority to handle things while I was overseas. My scarred hands tighten on the steering wheel as I turn onto our gravel road. The setting sun catches our mailbox, stuffed with what looks like final notices. But let me start from the beginning. The front door creaked open to stale, dusty air. No lights, no welcome home banner, no smell of dinner cooking, just darkness and silence. You know that hollow feeling when something's really wrong, but your brain's still catching up? Yeah, that's where I was. I flicked on the entry light, revealing a heap of mail scattered across the floor beneath the mail slot. Must have been weeks' worth. Probably months. My boots crunched over envelopes as I made my way to the kitchen, where a fine layer of dust coated the countertops. The fridge hummed empty, not even a stray condiment inside. "Vanessa?" My voice echoed through the house. No answer. Back at the entry, I knelt to sort through the mail pile. Bills, advertisements, more bills. Then my hand froze on a thick envelope with an official court seal. The return address was from the county courthouse. My stomach dropped as I tore it open, scanning the contents under the dim porch light. Notice of legal action. Vanessa Langley, Callahan vs. Richard Callahan. Petition for spousal support. The words blurred as I read further. She was suing me for $100,000 in back support, claiming I'd abandoned her during deployment. The filing date caught my eye. 3 months ago, when I was laid up in Germany with restricted communications after that last IED hit our convoy. I couldn't have known, couldn't have responded. Remember that smell of gun oil and canvas that fills your nose before a mission? That same acid taste hit the back of my throat as I moved through the house, checking rooms. The master bedroom was stripped bare, her closet empty, bathroom cabinet cleared of her makeup and creams. Even her favorite photo of us at the state fair was gone from the nightstand. My hands shook as I booted up my laptop, pulling up our joint account login. The balance that should have held my combat pay and housing allowance showed zeros across the board. Not just low, completely drained. I clicked through statement after statement, watching the withdrawals stack up during my final months overseas. Credit card accounts maxed out. Lines of credit bled dry. The activity spiked right around the time I lost internet access in Germany. The room started spinning. I gripped the desk edge, trying to steady myself. This was Vanessa, the woman who wrote me letters about missing my smile, about planning our future family, who sent care packages with her perfume sprayed inside, who swore she'd wait forever. A memory hit me. Dad showing me how to check property records online after he transferred the deed to me. "Always know what's yours, son," he'd said. "Land's the only thing that lasts." My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up the county assessor's website. Property search, our address, and there it was. The gut punch I didn't see coming. Owner, Marcus Langley. Transfer date, 4 months ago. Marcus, Vanessa's brother. The same guy who shook my hand at the wedding and called me brother. The power of attorney I'd signed before deploying. The one meant to let Vanessa handle our bills and mortgage, she'd used it to transfer my family's farm, my inheritance, my future. All signed away while I was dodging mortars and pulling wounded men to safety. I sat there in the dark, staring at the screen until my vision blurred. The ticking of Dad's old wall clock seemed to echo through the empty house. Each click reminded me of another lie, another betrayal, another piece of my life stolen while I served my country. The next morning, I pulled into the county recorder's office right as they opened. My leg was killing me. That reconstructed knee always ached worse in the morning, but I forced myself up those stone steps like I was back in basic training. The place smelled like old paper and coffee, with fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick. A clerk named Betty, who had to be pushing 70, shuffled through file cabinets while I waited. She kept giving me these worried glances, like she was seeing a ghost. Now I know why. "Here we are, hun. Property transfer for—" Her voice trailed off as she checked the address. "Oh my. Are you related to Richard Callahan?" "I am Richard Callahan." Her face went white. She actually crossed herself, right there at the desk. "But that's not— I mean, we were told—" "Told what, ma'am?" Instead of answering, she spread the documents across the counter. There was my signature on the transfer forms, except it wasn't mine. Close, but the R curved wrong, and the N at the end was too neat. I'd never written it that way in my life. "This is forged," I said, pointing to the signature. "I never signed this." Betty adjusted her glasses. "Sir, these documents were properly notarized and submitted through your military power of attorney. Your wife handled everything according to protocol. But it's not my signature. With an active POA, she had full authority to execute documents on your behalf." She paused, shuffling through more papers. "And I should mention, the property is already in escrow. Set to close in—" She checked a calendar. 10 days from now. The room tilted. "What do you mean, in escrow?" "There's a pending sale, sir. All the preliminary paperwork has been processed." I was out the door before she finished speaking, my bad knee screaming as I half ran to my truck. The real estate company's name and address were right there on the transfer forms. 15 minutes later, I burst through their front door, probably looking half crazy. A realtor named Jim Chapman sat me down in his office. He had that slick, professional sympathy face they must teach in real estate school. "Mr. Callahan, I understand this is unusual, but your wife handled the listing personally. She presented herself as the only interested party. Given your—" He coughed. "Given your status." "My status?" "Your death, sir. In Afghanistan." He loosened his tie. "She even did that TV interview last month, talking about losing you in combat. Very moving piece, actually. Channel 8 ran it during their Veterans Day special. The words hit me like rounds of artillery. My hands gripped the armrests so hard my knuckles went white. She told everyone I was dead? "Mr. Callahan, I'm not comfortable discussing this further. Given the pending lawsuit and property title situation, you currently have no legal standing to intervene in the sale. Perhaps you should speak with an attorney." I stood up slowly, steadying myself against his desk. "What lawsuit? The one your wife filed? For spousal support?" He was already reaching for his phone. "Sir, I think you should leave before I have to call security." The drive home was a blur. Every radio commercial, every billboard seemed to mock me. Had the whole town been watching my wife play grieving widow while I was fighting for my life overseas? How many people believed her story? My laptop was still on the kitchen table where I'd left it the night before. Hands shaking, I pulled up Channel 8's website and searched their recent archives. There it was. Local military widow speaks out. The thumbnail showed Vanessa in black, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I hadn't cried since Dad died. Hadn't cried in combat or during months of rehab. But sitting there, staring at that video thumbnail, something broke loose in my chest. All those nights in the desert, reading her letters by flashlight. All those promises about our future. All those dreams about coming home. The cursor hovered over the play button. I needed to see it. Needed to know exactly what lies she'd told about me. But God, I wasn't sure I was ready for what I was about to watch. I clicked play. The Channel 8 logo spun across the screen, followed by soft piano music that made my stomach turn. There was Vanessa, sitting in what looked like our living room, except it wasn't. The furniture had been rearranged, family photos strategically placed behind her. She wore black, her makeup perfect despite the tears. "It's still hard to talk about," she said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. The interviewer, some young reporter with too much hair gel, nodded sympathetically. He changed during that last deployment. The letters became angry, controlling. I think the war broke something in him. My fists clenched. Every letter I'd sent had been about hope, about our future, about coming home to her. The camera panned to a folded American flag in her lap, one I'd never seen before, probably ordered online, just like the medals displayed on the coffee table. "He left us in debt," Vanessa continued, her voice breaking. "The farm was mortgaged, bills piling up. I didn't know until after." She touched the flag. "They said he died protecting others. That's all they told me." The scene shifted to her standing in front of my father's farm. My farm. The place I'd grown up, where I'd learned to walk behind my dad's steady footsteps. The sign was gone, replaced with a Fresh Start Properties banner. "This land holds so many memories," she said, gesturing to the fields. "But it's time for closure, time to let go." The camera zoomed in on items arranged on the porch. Dad's old work boots, my deployment photo, even the rusty toolbox from the garage. Props in her little stage play. Each one felt like a knife twisting deeper. "If you'd like to support Vanessa's journey," the reporter said in voiceover, "she'll be speaking at this weekend's Hearts for Heroes benefit at the Cedar Grove Community Center. All proceeds go to helping military widows rebuild their lives." I paused the video, bile rising in my throat. The benefit was tonight. In 3 hours, actually. Funny how time works. 3 tours overseas felt like forever, but right then, 3 hours seemed too damn short to process what I'd just watched. You ever have a moment where your whole world shifts? Where everything you thought you knew just shatters? That's what it felt like, sitting there in my empty house, watching my wife cry crocodile tears over my death. I cleaned up, put on my best shirt, the one I'd saved for special occasions back home. My reflection looked strange, like I was getting ready for someone else's funeral. The drive to Cedar Grove took forever, and no time at all. The community center parking lot was packed. Through the windows, I could see a crowd gathered around a small stage. Vanessa stood at the podium, that same black outfit, that same flag on display beside her. My hand shook as I pushed through the doors. "And though the grief never truly leaves us," she was saying, "we must find strength in Vanessa." My voice carried across the room. Heads turned. Phones came out. "Want to tell them the truth?" She froze. For just a second, I saw real fear flash across her face. Then it happened. She screamed. Not a normal scream. This was theatrical, practiced, the kind that makes everyone think victim right away. "Security!" she shrieked, backing away from the podium. "He's an imposter! Someone stop him!" The crowd erupted. People stood, phones recording everything. 2 big guys in event staff polos appeared beside me, grabbing my arms. "Ma'am," I called out as they started dragging me back, "tell them who I really am. Tell them." Vanessa pointed a shaking finger at me. That man is sick. He's been stalking me, claiming to be my dead husband. Her voice cracked perfectly. Please, get him out of here. The last thing I saw before they shoved me through the doors was Vanessa collapsing into the arms of her supporters, cameras flashing like stars in a nightmare sky. I hit the pavement hard, my bad knee buckling. Stay away, one of the security guys warned, or we're calling the cops. I stumbled to my truck, knee throbbing where it had hit the concrete. The security guards watched from the doorway, hands on their radios, like I was some kind of threat. Music and applause drifted through the walls, the show going on without missing a beat. My show, technically, the story of my death, starring my wife. The drive home was a blur. You know that feeling when your mind's racing so fast you can't grab onto a single thought? That was me, hands clenched on the wheel, replaying Vanessa's performance over and over. The practiced tears, the perfect timing of her screams. How long had she been rehearsing that routine? I pulled into the farm's gravel driveway, still mine for another week or so, at least on paper. The porch light was dead, probably burned out months ago with no one to change it. Dad used to say a dark porch meant a neglected home. Guess he was right about that one. Inside, I flipped through my deployment papers again, searching for anything I could use to prove who I was. But Vanessa had thought of everything. She'd used my power of attorney to change addresses, redirect mail, empty accounts. Hell, she'd even filed a restraining order using my harassment at the community center as grounds. The paperwork had been waiting on the front step when I got back. The kitchen clock ticked past midnight. I hadn't eaten since morning, but my stomach was too knotted to care. The house felt different now, less like home, more like a museum of everything I'd lost. Even the air felt stale, like it was holding its breath, waiting to belong to someone else. Remember what I said about time feeling strange? Standing there in my daddy's kitchen, my kitchen, it hit me that I'd spent more time defending this land overseas than I had actually living on it as the owner. Now it was slipping away, because I'd trusted the wrong person with the right papers. I needed to get out, clear my head, find a motel or something until I could figure out my next move. The thought of sleeping here, surrounded by Vanessa's lies, made my skin crawl. Besides, the utilities might get cut any day now. Another oversight during my deployment. Upstairs, I grabbed my old army duffel from the closet, started tossing in the basics, clothes, toiletries, what was left of my medals. The real ones, not whatever knockoffs Vanessa had bought for her performance. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely fold a pair of jeans. That's when I felt it. Something stiff taped to the bottom of the top drawer. I pulled the drawer all the way out, and there it was. A yellowed envelope with Dad's messy handwriting. "If things ever get ugly," it said. Inside was a faded Vietnam service patch, the kind Dad never talked about, but kept in his dresser until the day he died. Below it, a name and phone number. Hank, 555-0187. Hank. Jesus, I hadn't thought about him in decades. He and Dad had served together, stayed friends after. Used to come around when I was a kid, teaching me about engines while they traded war stories I was too young to understand. After Dad passed, Hank just faded away, like a lot of things did back then. My hands were steadier now as I punched in the number, probably disconnected. People don't keep the same... Yeah? A gravelly voice, sharp despite the hour. This is Richard Callahan, Matthew's boy. I found your number in an envelope your daddy left. Been wondering when you'd call. My throat tightened. You knew? Saw that news piece about your widow last month. Knew something wasn't right. You got your father's eyes. Hard to fake those in a deployment photo. He paused. Meet me tomorrow. Aero 900 sharp. Still know where the shop is? Yes, sir. Good. Don't be late. The line went dead. The next morning, I pointed my truck north on Highway 63, watching the sun climb over endless cornfields. 2 hours of nothing but farm country and my own thoughts. The radio stayed off. I needed that quiet to get my head straight. Hank's shop sat right where I remembered it. A weathered metal building with a hand-painted, veteran-owned sign that looked older than me. 3 broken-down Harleys decorated the gravel lot like rusty lawn ornaments. The place smelled exactly the same. Oil, metal, and that peculiar mix of coffee and cigarettes that seemed to follow Namvets everywhere. "You're 2 minutes late," Hank's voice carried from under a lifted bike. He rolled out, wiping his hands on a rag that might have been cleaned during the Carter administration. Time had turned his hair silver, but those sharp eyes hadn't changed a bit. "Traffic on?" "Save it." He tossed the rag aside. "Your daddy never made excuses. Neither should you." The mention of Dad hit harder than I expected. My throat got tight as Hank studied me, probably seeing the same thing. How much I looked like the old man. "Coffee's hot," he said finally, nodding toward a pot that had definitely seen better days. "Grab 2 cups and meet me in the office." The office turned out to be a cramped back room wallpapered with service photos and motorcycle diagrams. Hank cleared a stack of manuals off a metal folding chair. "Sit." I did, holding out one of the coffee mugs. He ignored it, pulling out a thick folder instead. "Been doing some homework since you called. Your wife's been busy." He spread out papers across his workbench. DMV records, property transfers, bank withdrawals, all with your signature, all while you were deployed. How did you? "I know people who know people." He tapped a document. "This notary stamp? Dated while you were in that German hospital. Unless you figured out teleporting. That's forgery." My hands clenched around the coffee mug. The lawyer said without proof, "Proof's everywhere, if you know where to look." Hank grabbed his phone. "Jerry? Yeah, he's here. Run those DMV cameras like we talked about." "Yeah, I'll hold." While we waited, Hank walked me through his system. Every document had a timestamp. Every office visit left a trail. He'd mapped out Vanessa's movements like a military operation, tracking her paper trail across 3 counties. "Your dad taught me something in Nam," he said, shuffling through records. "Enemy gets sloppy when they think they're winning. Your wife's the same way. Didn't bother covering her tracks. Probably figured you'd never make it home to look." A voice crackled through the phone speaker. "Got that footage, Hank?" "Sending it now." The video was grainy but clear enough. Vanessa walking into the DMV alone. Timestamp matching the day the farm's deed transferred. She'd signed my name right there at the counter. "Keep digging," Hank told his friend. "Check the notary logs, too. I want everything." By noon, we had a stack of evidence. Time-stamped security footage, signature comparisons, witness statements from county clerks. Each piece small, but together they painted a picture of calculated fraud. 10 days, I said, watching Hank organize the files. "That's all we've got before escrow closes." He slapped the folder shut, eyes narrowing. "We've got plenty of kindling," he said. "Now we need a damn match." Something in his voice made me sit straighter. I recognized that tone, the same one Dad used when he was about to turn the tables on someone who'd crossed him. Hank's shop became our war room over the next 2 days. Every surface disappeared under stacks of papers and coffee-ringed folders. You know that moment in those crime shows where they've got photos connected with red string? We weren't far off. Just swapped the murder photos for notary stamps and bank statements. "Look at this," Hank said, jabbing his finger at a medical document. "December 12th through January 3rd. You were in complete lockdown at Landstuhl. No phone, no email, nothing." He shuffled through another pile. "Now here's the kicker. 3 different documents with your signature got notarized during that exact window." I remembered that ward all too well. The antiseptic smell, the German doctors, the fuzzy morphine haze while they pieced my knee back together. Couldn't even hold a pen steady back then if I wanted to. "Exactly." Hank's handlebar mustache twitched with satisfaction. "And we've got your surgeon's affidavit to prove it." A knock at the shop's back door made us both jump. A thin man in wire-rimmed glasses poked his head in. Carl from the county real estate board. Another of Hank's endless connections. "Got something interesting," Carl said, dropping a thick folder on our makeshift command center. "Your wife's power of attorney? She used it 17 times in 4 months. That's unusual." "Unusual how?" I asked. "Military POAs are meant for emergency decisions, medical stuff, basic finances. Not," he spread out a series of documents, "not transferring deeds, opening new credit lines, or filing civil suits. Each of these should have required separate authorization." Hank grunted. "She wasn't just coloring outside the lines. She was painting the whole damn wall." While they dug deeper into the legal specifics, I pulled up Vanessa's social media on my laptop. The screen filled with sympathy messages and shared grief posts. Then something caught my eye. A GoFundMe link. "Hey guys." My voice must have sounded strange, because they both looked up. "You need to see this." The page showed Vanessa in black, clutching that fake folded flag from her TV appearance. Below it, a mission statement for something called the Gold Star Grief Alliance. My stomach churned as I read donations totaling over $50,000. "She started a charity," I said, "for war widows, using my death." Hank's face darkened. He grabbed his phone, punching in numbers from memory. "Bobby? Yeah, it's Hank. Remember that fraud case we discussed? Just got bigger. Way bigger." 20 minutes later, we were on speaker with FBI Special Agent Robert Chen. His voice carried that precise federal clip that meant business. "Fraudulent charities targeting veterans' families?" He let out a low whistle. "That kicks this up several notches. Interstate commerce, wire fraud, potential RICO violations if she's working with others." "Can you stop her?" I asked. "With what you've given us? Absolutely. But," he paused, "timing is crucial. We need to catch her in an overt act. Something concrete happening now." Hank leaned toward the phone. "Escrow closes in 7 days. She'll have to show up to sign final papers." "Perfect," Agent Chen said. "That's exactly the kind of move we need. Get me everything you have: medical records, POA abuse, charity documentation. My team will prep for intercept, but we'll need eyes on her next confirmed appearance." After the call, Hank and I spent hours organizing our evidence into what he called FBI-friendly format. Each violation tagged, cross-referenced, and backed by multiple sources. The stack of papers grew until it could have stopped a bullet. "One thing still bugs me," I said, stretching my stiff back. "Why'd she pick that specific charity angle? She could have just taken the money and run?" Hank looked up from his labeling. "Same reason a snake rattles before it strikes. Some predators can't help but show off their kill." He shook his head. "Your wife didn't just want your money. She wanted to be seen taking it." The truth of that hit home. Every public tear, every sympathy-grabbing post, it was all part of her performance. She wasn't just stealing my life, she was rewriting it for an audience. Agent Chen called back as the sun was setting. "Paperwork's solid. Now we just need her next move. The moment she shows up to sign those escrow papers, we'll be ready," Hank finished. The title company's lobby smelled like fresh coffee and printer toner. I adjusted my borrowed suit jacket. Hank's idea, to look the part of a serious buyer. My reflection in the glass doors showed a man I barely recognized, clean-shaven, hair combed, wearing clothes that didn't smell like motor oil for the first time in days. "Can I help you?" The receptionist's nameplate read, "Sandra." "Hope so." I channeled every bit of casual confidence I could muster. "I'm interested in the Callahan property on Route 16. Heard it's in escrow, but wanted to check if there might be a backup offer position available." Sandra tapped at her keyboard. "Oh, yes, beautiful piece of land. The current sale is scheduled to close." She squinted at the screen. This Friday at 2 p.m. The seller's coming in to sign final paperwork. My heart thumped. 3 days. We had our timeline. Shame about the timing, I said, standing. Guess I'll keep looking. Back at Hank's shop, we spread everything across his workbench. Bank statements, notary logs, DMV footage, medical records from Germany, and screenshots of Vanessa's charity scam. Each piece of evidence got labeled, copied, and arranged in what Hank called federal-friendly order. Timeline's the key, he muttered, paperclipping another set of documents. Show them exactly how she moved, step by step, while you were laid up overseas. The shop's ancient fan rattled overhead, pushing around hot air that smelled like chain grease and old coffee. It reminded me of long summers helping Dad fix tractors, back when the farm was still ours, back before Vanessa turned my life into her personal ATM. You remember Channel 8? I asked, an idea forming. The station that ran her fake widow story? Hank's eyebrows lifted. The ones who made you look like the bad guy? Yeah, I remember. What if we gave them a chance to fix that mistake? I pulled out my phone and Googled their news desk. Offer them exclusive coverage of whatever comes next? Hank stroked his mustache. Media pressure could help keep everything above board. Plus, nothing hurts a con artist more than public exposure. The news producer, Dave Mitchell, answered on the second ring. I gave him the quick version. Decorated vet, fraudulent widow, FBI involvement. His voice sharpened with each detail. So, you're saying we aired false information? He didn't sound happy about that part. You aired what she wanted you to air, I said. Now I'm offering you the real story. Live coverage of federal agents arresting a fraud artist who exploited military families. Exclusive footage of justice being served. A long pause. It's compelling, he admitted. But we need more than just cops leading someone away in cuffs. Our viewers expect drama. I caught Hank's eye. He nodded slowly, a grin spreading under that silver mustache. How about this? I said. Your camera crew catches her signing forged documents in real time, captures the moment she realizes she's been caught, shows federal agents walking in while she's literally committing the crime. Now that's good TV, Dave said. Send me proof you're coordinating with actual FBI agents, and we'll position our people wherever you need them. After hanging up, I helped Hank pack the last of our evidence into a heavy-duty shipping box. He sealed it with enough tape to survive a war zone. Overnight delivery to the FBI field office, he said, slapping on the shipping label. Agent Chen will have everything first thing tomorrow. Think it's enough? Son, we've got her forging documents while you were documented unconscious in Germany. We've got her collecting charity money by claiming you're dead. We've got video of her impersonating you at the DMV. He patted the box. This is enough to put her away until your hair's as gray as mine. I managed a tired laugh. The weight of the past weeks pressed down on my shoulders, but for the first time since coming home, it felt like we had a real shot at making things right. Front row seats, Hank said, echoing the producer's words. Time to show everyone exactly who your wife really is. We drove to the post office just before closing. As I watched the clerk scan the overnight label, I thought about Vanessa planning her final signing appointment, probably rehearsing her grieving widow act one last time. She had no idea what was coming. 3 days. Just 3 more days. The morning of the sting, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from nerves. More like that electric tension right before a mission, when you know everything's about to break loose. Hank and I parked his beat-up Chevy across from Western Missouri Title and Escrow at 9:30 a.m. sharp. The dashboard clock's red numbers blinked steadily, counting down to showtime. Channel 8's white van sat half a block away, their crew pretending to film B-roll for some fluff piece about real estate trends. You good? Hank asked, adjusting his side mirror for a better view of the entrance. I nodded, though my throat felt like sandpaper. The familiar weight of my father's old binoculars pressed against my chest, where they hung from a leather strap. Through the windshield, morning sun glinted off the title company's glass doors, the same doors Vanessa would walk through any minute now, thinking she was about to cash out on her final con. "Agent Chen confirmed the team's in position?" I asked, for probably the 10th time. "Yep. 4 agents inside posing as staff. 6 more in the parking garage." Hank took a slow sip from his thermos. "Stop worrying. We've got everything covered." He was right. We'd planned this down to the minute. But seeing Hannah Whitmore, the Channel 8 anchor, doing sound checks in her crisp blue blazer made it all feel suddenly, intensely real. No turning back now. At 10:37, a black SUV pulled into the lot. My pulse kicked up as Vanessa's brother stepped out of the driver's side, checking his phone with practiced casualness. Then, the passenger door opened. "There's our star," Hank muttered. Vanessa emerged wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly disability check. Shopping bags dangled from one arm, keeping up appearances until the very end. She'd styled her hair in those soft curls she always wore for important meetings, the ones that made her look more innocent somehow. Through the binoculars, I watched them walk inside. Vanessa's heels clicked against marble tile as she approached the reception desk. A woman I didn't recognize, probably one of Chen's agents, led them down the hallway to a conference room. "Channel 8's moving into position," Hank reported quietly. Sure enough, Hannah and her crew were setting up near the entrance, still maintaining their cover story about market trends. The cameraman adjusted his angle for a clear shot through the conference room's glass wall. 10:43 a.m. Vanessa settled into a high-backed chair, spreading papers across the polished table. Her brother stood behind her, arms crossed, playing watchdog. They had no idea every employee in that room was federal law enforcement. "She's reviewing the documents," I narrated for Hank's benefit. My hands clenched around the binoculars, getting ready to sign. Vanessa reached for a pen. The moment stretched like hot wire about to snap. Then everything happened at once. Badges flashed. Agents materialized from every direction. Chen's voice rang out clear and official. "FBI, everyone stay where you are!" Through my binoculars, I watched Vanessa's face transform. First confusion, then shock, then pure animal panic, as she realized what was happening. She tried to stand, but agents were already moving in, securing the room with practiced efficiency. "Oh my God!" Hannah Whitmore's voice carried from outside. She'd dropped all pretense of the cover story, pivoting to face her camera. "We're watching what appears to be a federal raid in progress at Western Missouri Title and Escrow. They're arresting Vanessa Langley, the self-proclaimed military widow who—" Vanessa's scream cut through the glass as an agent secured her wrists behind her back. Her brother tried to bolt, but didn't make it 3 steps before they had him too. "This is unbelievable," Hannah continued, professional mask cracking with genuine surprise. "We're seeing multiple federal agents taking Mrs. Langley into custody on what I'm told are charges of fraud, criminal impersonation, and—" She pressed her earpiece. "I'm now being informed there may be wire fraud charges as well, stemming from an alleged charity scam targeting military families." They led Vanessa out in handcuffs, her perfect curls now wild around her face. She spotted the camera and started shouting, but the words were lost in the chaos. Her brother followed, head down, flanked by agents. Beside me, Hank let out a long breath. "Well, that's what justice looks like." I lowered the binoculars, my hands finally steady. Through the windshield, I watched the federal vehicles pull away, lights flashing. Hannah was still broadcasting, now standing where Vanessa had parked just minutes earlier. "For those just joining us, we're live outside Western Missouri Title and Escrow, where federal agents have just arrested Vanessa Langley during what appears to be an attempted property fraud." The next 24 hours felt like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. Beautiful, satisfying dominoes. I sat in Hank's shop office, scrolling through news updates on his ancient desktop computer. The arrest footage had gone viral overnight. Seems people really hate fake military widows. Channel 8's coverage played on repeat, showing Vanessa being led out in cuffs, while Hannah Whitmore detailed the charges. Each replay brought back that moment with crystal clarity, the shock on Vanessa's face when she realized her game was up. "Look at this," Hank said, tapping his phone screen. Booking reports up. Sure enough, there was Vanessa's mugshot. No more perfect curls or camera-ready smile, just harsh fluorescent lighting, and the kind of empty stare that comes when your whole world implodes. The charges filled nearly a full page. Fraud, forgery, criminal impersonation, wire fraud, theft by deception. The list went on. I logged into the county records site, something I'd done obsessively since this nightmare began. But this time was different. The farm's status had changed to sale terminated. Below that, a note: buyer withdrawal due to title dispute and criminal investigation. My throat got tight. Just like that, the land was safe. "Your attorney called while you were in the head," Hank mentioned casually. "That $100,000 lawsuit? Judge dismissed it this morning. Said something about fraud upon the court." The relief hit me like a physical wave. I had to grip the desk edge to steady myself, reminded me of that day in Germany when the doctors said my lung would heal after all. But we weren't done getting good news. By noon, Vanessa's brother had his own set of charges: conspiracy, receiving stolen property, false documentation. Turned out the feds had been building a case against him even before our evidence dump. The property transfer was just the final nail. Around 2 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Channel 8 had dug deeper into Vanessa's Gold Star Grief Alliance. They found fake tax documents, manufactured testimonials, even digitally altered photos of Vanessa with other supposed military widows. The charity's website went dark, but screenshots were everywhere. "You see this?" Hank called from his office. "Your ex's non-profit just got its accounts frozen. Feds are talking full asset seizure." I walked over to look. The Department of Justice press release was short, but devastating. They'd already identified over 50,000 in donations, all getting clawed back. Social media was having a field day. Fake widow started trending locally. People shared stories of donating to Vanessa's cause, each one angrier than the last. Her carefully curated online presence crumbled post by post. "Here's the real kicker," Hank said, pointing to a fresh email. "My buddy at the FBI says 3 different donor groups filed civil suits this morning. Class action. They're coming after whatever's left of her personal assets." That brought a grim smile to my face. She always did want to be famous. The afternoon wore on. More details emerged with each passing hour. The charity's books were a mess of creative accounting. Vanessa had used donor funds for everything from spa days to luxury car payments. Each revelation spawned new headlines, new outrage. By sunset, her brother's real estate license was suspended pending investigation. His brokerage issued a public statement distancing themselves faster than a spooked horse. The walls were closing in from all sides. I sat in the growing darkness of Hank's office, watching the aftermath unfold. Part of me had wondered if revenge would feel hollow, if getting even would somehow make me just as bad as her. But this wasn't revenge. This was justice, pure and simple. We'd just shown the truth the light of day. Everything else? That was all Vanessa's doing. My phone lit up with a text from the FBI agent who'd led the arrest. They'd finished processing the initial evidence, the forged documents, the faked death claims, the diverted funds. It was all documented, categorized, and headed for prosecution. "Federal fraud cases have a 97% conviction rate," Hank commented, reading over my shoulder. "Might want to remember that number. Could help you sleep tonight." I nodded. feeling the weight of the past months finally start to lift. The farm was safe. The lawsuit was dead. And Vanessa? She was facing the consequences of her own choices, one indictment at a time. After the dust settled, I finally drove out to survey the farm properly. The late afternoon sun caught the overgrown fields just right, making them glow like waves of gold and green. Nature had taken its course while I was gone. First overseas, then dealing with Vanessa's mess. Weeds pushed through cracks in the concrete pad by the barn. Saplings sprouted where they shouldn't. But underneath all that wild growth, I could still feel the bones of the place. Strong, resilient, like it had been waiting. The crunch of tires on gravel announced Hank's arrival. He climbed out of his truck, carrying 2 sets of work gloves and some basic tools he'd scrounged up. "Figured we ought to start somewhere," he said, tossing me a pair of gloves. "Your daddy would have had a fit seeing it like this." I pulled the gloves on, feeling the familiar texture. Reminded me of early mornings helping Dad before school, hands still too small for proper work gloves. Yeah, he never could stand seeing good land go idle. We started with the brush choking the old vegetable garden. The work was steady, methodical, kind of peaceful, really. Different from the precise violence of combat, but it still felt like reclaiming territory inch by inch. "Watch your step there," I called out, when Hank nearly backed into a hidden fence post. Though I guess I should be telling myself that. Been a while since I had to worry about anything besides IEDs, Hank snorted. "Different kind of minefield here. Your old man buried irrigation pipes all over without marking half of them." By midday, we'd cleared enough to see the garden's original boundaries. Hank leaned on his rake, squinting at the freshly exposed soil. "Good earth here still," he said. "Bet those tomato rows your father was so proud of would come right back with some care." I wiped sweat from my forehead, remembering those tomatoes. Dad used to say they grew sweet because the land knew its purpose. Might need a stronger hoe first, and definitely fewer landmines. That got a genuine laugh out of Hank, a rare sound that seemed to surprise us both. The moment felt right, like the land itself was exhaling. We walked the property line next, checking fences and marking spots that needed attention. The old maple still stood guard at the north corner, its branches reaching wider than I remembered. Coming around the east side, we found deer tracks crossing what used to be the cornfield. "Your dad would have had choice words about those visitors," Hank said. "Probably the same ones he used when I trampled his corn playing soldier as a kid." The sound of another vehicle approaching made us both turn. A white SUV with the Channel 8 logo crept up the drive. The same crew that had filmed Vanessa's arrest stepped out, equipment in hand. Hannah Smith, the anchor, approached with a practiced smile. We were hoping to get a follow-up segment. The stories gained quite a following. I glanced at Hank, who gave me a slight nod, my call to make. "Appreciate the interest," I told her, "but I'm going to pass." This was never about headlines. It was about reclaiming what mattered. She started to protest, but something in my expression must have convinced her. The crew packed up without argument and left us to our work. "You know," Hank said once they were gone, "your father would have done the same thing. He never did like people making a fuss." We stood there a moment longer, watching the sun start its descent over fields that were scarred but standing, kind of like the man who'd come home to them. There was still plenty of work ahead, but for the first time since returning, I felt the land recognize me again. The next morning, Hank's truck rumbled up earlier than usual. Something long was wrapped in burlap in his passenger seat. He got out slowly, treating whatever it was with unusual care. "Got something for you," he said, unwrapping the bundle. Figured the place needed a proper marker. The sign was simple but beautiful. Clean white-painted wood with letters done in careful black strokes. "Veteran lives here." The craftsmanship spoke of hours spent getting it just right. My throat tightened at the gesture. "You make this yourself?" I asked, running my fingers over the smooth surface. "Had some help from the guys at the shop." Hank shrugged, but I could tell he was pleased. Vietnam vet named Charlie did the lettering. Said his hands still remember sign painting from before the war. We stood there a moment, both pretending to study the sign while actually processing what it meant. You ever notice how the biggest moments sometimes come wrapped in the smallest packages? This wasn't just wood and paint. It was a declaration, a reclaiming. Well, Hank finally said, better get it in the ground before the sun gets too high. We chose a spot near the gate where visitors couldn't miss it. I grabbed a post-hole digger from the barn while Hank retrieved a small bag of concrete mix from his truck. The tools felt right in my hands. Simple, honest work. Nothing like the complex web of legal maneuvers we'd needed to get here. The morning air still held that crisp edge as we dug. My knee complained a bit, but I welcomed the familiar burn of physical labor. Reminded me of all those pre-dawn hours working alongside Dad, learning the rhythm of the land. Hold it steady now, Hank directed as we positioned the post. He poured the concrete mix, while I kept the sign perfectly straight. Your father would have appreciated this, you know. He always said a man's property should speak his truth. The concrete would take time to set, but we stayed there, making sure it held true. A pair of cardinals darted past, their red feathers bright against the pale morning sky. Somewhere in the distance, a tractor engine hummed, the sound of normal life continuing, unchanged by our small ceremony. Looks right, Hank finally said, stepping back to view our handiwork. The sign stood proud against the backdrop of my fields, neither boastful nor apologetic, just stating facts. A veteran lived here, had always lived here, really. Even when I was thousands of miles away, I felt the weight of Hank's hand on my shoulder. Brief, firm. The kind of gesture that says more than words ever could. Then he was moving toward his truck, our task complete. You did good, son, he said simply. Both over there and here. He climbed in, started the engine, and with a final nod, headed off down the gravel road. I stayed by the gate long after his taillights disappeared, watching shadows stretch as the day aged. When night finally settled in, I was still there, feeling the evening stars emerge one by one. The same stars I'd watched from desert camps, from hospital beds, from all the places that had tried to claim pieces of me. But this spot, right here, this was different. This was where all those scattered pieces could finally come home to roost. The sign caught the starlight on its fresh paint, a quiet sentry marking not just boundaries of land, but of spirit. I took a deep breath of familiar air. Somewhere in the darkness, crickets started their evening chorus. A breeze rustled through the old maple's leaves. The farm was speaking its own language, one I'd known since childhood. Standing there under that wide Missouri sky, I felt something settle into place. Not just my claim to the land, but my place in my own story. The tale of a soldier who'd fought 2 wars, one abroad and one at home, and found his way back to solid ground. You know what's funny about revenge? Everyone thinks it tastes sweet. But standing there in the cool night air, watching those stars wheel overhead, I realized something different. Real justice, the kind that rights wrongs instead of creating new ones, it doesn't taste sweet at all. It tastes like earth after rain, like rust and resolve, like coming home. The news had spread fast through our small town. Vanessa's carefully constructed house of cards hadn't just fallen, it had imploded. Her lawyer dropped her the moment the FBI evidence went public. The fake charities books revealed over $80,000 in personal purchases, designer clothes, spa treatments, even a down payment on a luxury car. All bought with donations meant to help grieving military families. Her brother wasn't faring much better. The preliminary hearing painted him as an eager accomplice, not some innocent bystander. The prosecutor had a field day with their text messages, planning meetings, discussing forged documents, calculating profits from the farm sale. Looking at 3 to 5 years, minimum, But it was the social fallout that hit Vanessa hardest. Small towns have long memories, and she'd played them all for fools. The same people who'd shed tears at her performances now crossed the street to avoid her. Local businesses pulled her event invitations. Her social media went dark after the 100th comment calling her a fraud. "Karma's got a longer reach than any sniper I ever met," Hank had said yesterday. And he wasn't wrong. A whip-poor will called from somewhere in the darkness, its voice carrying across the empty fields. Made me think of nights on watch in Afghanistan, listening to unfamiliar birds in unfamiliar hills. Back then, I dreamed of this place, these specific acres, this exact spot where I stood. The land had been my anchor when everything else went sideways. That's what Vanessa never understood. She saw the farm as a commodity, something to strip and sell. But you can't put a price tag on legacy. Can't measure heritage in square footage. This soil held my family's story. Every crop planted, every season weathered, every lesson passed from father to son. The breeze picked up, carrying the scent of fresh-turned earth from where Hank and I had planted the sign. My knee ached from the day's work, but it was a good pain, honest pain. Not like the hollow feeling I'd had watching Vanessa cry crocodile tears on TV, or the acid burn of seeing my signature forged on official documents. I reached down and grabbed a handful of soil, letting it sift through my fingers. In Afghanistan, I'd carried a small vial of dirt from the farm, something to hold on to during the worst moments. Now, I had it all back. Every acre, every memory, every right to call this place home. The local paper had wanted an interview after everything went down, wanted to know how it felt to win, to see justice served. But that wasn't the real story. The real victory wasn't in Vanessa's downfall or the legal vindication. It was in this moment, standing guard over my own piece of America, knowing I'd protected it the same way I'd protected my brothers in arms, with patience, strategy, and unwavering resolve. I touched the sign one last time, feeling the solid wood under my palm. Veteran lives here. Simple words that carried the weight of two wars, one fought with bullets and blood, the other with paperwork and persistence. And looking back, I had to admit, this battle for the farm had demanded more from me than any firefight ever did. Required a different kind of courage, a steadier kind of strength. The first hint of dawn started bleeding into the eastern sky. Another day beginning on land that had seen generations of sunrises. Land that had waited for me, fought for me, welcomed me home when I needed it most. I squared my shoulders, feeling the familiar weight of belonging settle over me like armor. The truth was as solid as the sign we'd planted. This land fought back harder than I ever did overseas. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.